We really wanted to talk in this session about the ways that businesses are building resilience, have built resilience, and that really gets to the core, of what Sustainable Business Summits have been about for years. How do you protect and advance long-term value? Genevieve, I want to come to you first. You have long experience at your current company. You were explaining to me earlier your career there. You've seen a lot of challenges across a whole spectrum, I'm sure. But if we can think about sort of maybe one important example of a challenge that your business has identified as a risk and a resilience risk, and how you've gone about handling that and dealing with that challenge, what would be one key example?
All right, thank you. So certainly I've been facing a lot of challenges over the 36 years that I've been in this industry. So it's physical, it's economic, and also internal. But if I were to really look at just one example, I think it would be anticipating changes in customer expectations. That's something that affects many industries. And it's also relevant to this summit, since it's a sustainability summit, because 20 years ago, that's how our story began, our sustainability journey. Sustainability was not talked about in the industry at all. It was not also driven by regulation. But we decided to take that strategic decision to introduce papers that come from sustainably managed forests. So that's like FSC and PFC. And it was something that would not just introduce choices in the market, but also it was also the right thing to do. But what happened after that was that we invested in the paper, and also creating awareness about such sustainably managed forest papers from this sort of areas, and also created workshops and all. And at the same time, encouraged our printers, our customers, to be certified as well. But what happened then was that we had overseas publishers who wanted to print in Singapore, and they wanted to buy certified papers and also to have certified printers to print their books and journals. And the business benefit was that it brought millions of dollars of business into Singapore. So that's something that's it's about future-proofing your business. Yeah. And over time, of course, that sustainability journey, we've also, along the way, what we've done is that, thanks to GCNS also, we started on the recording our Scope 1, Scope 2 carbon emissions through the Low Carbon SG tool. And that, together with all the other initiatives, also helped us to achieve EcoVadis goal, and that secured a 2-year contract from a multinational company. So what this has actually shown me over the years is that resilience really starts before the crisis starts. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really something that you've got to be prepared for the customer changes and expectations. So I think it's doing things beforehand to future-proof the business. Yeah, quite. And David, your member companies range from large to small and across many different kinds of industries. Right now, if you think about current risks, what are some of the most important challenges they're dealing with when it comes to thinking about resilience, and how are they dealing with them? Yeah, no, thank you for the question, David. It's great to be here on the panel. I'm part of the UN Global Compact, which is 26,000 members globally, about 350 here in Singapore. We are cross-sectoral, so we're across every single industry group and so forth. Those who join us tend to be passionate about sustainability, just starting the journey or way down the track on their journey. So obviously it's a challenging time for those in sustainability and holding the fort and really making sure that they're driving business value. And great to be on the panel with Genevieve, is one of our very most progressive members and is really committed to advancing sustainable development goals and really making a difference to our organization. But I think it's no longer about just surviving disruption. It's really about adaptation. It's about being able to compete and create value in a very unstable, very challenging, disruptive world that we're living in. So one of the biggest changes we've seen over the last 2 years is that business risk has really become interconnected and is no longer isolated. So before, you looked at maybe climate risk or workforce risk or supplier chain risk, but now they're all happening sort of everywhere, everything all at once. So how do you actually manage that? So we do have different types of
partnership organizations. We've got smaller SMEs who are just starting their journey. We've got larger organizations. So the larger organizations are really negotiating their supply chain. They're really integrating with their, really getting to know their suppliers really well, looking at different models. They're actually integrating risk into their everyday business decisions. So it's not just sort of waiting for a crisis to happen. They're actually looking ahead and thinking, okay, well, how do I manage this? And realizing the world that we're living in is going to be always like this. I don't think it's going to get to a point where, it's just, here's the next event, we'll just deal with it. You have to kind of deal with it all at once. So for larger organizations, obviously they've got the infrastructure, they've got risk teams, they've got analysts and so forth like that. So they're probably ahead in terms of driving I guess better outcomes. It's more challenging for SMEs because they don't have risk teams. They're smaller businesses in Genevieve, you know this. So how do you navigate with that? And I mean, I'd love to think we play a role, and I think your ecosystem and your networks play a role in helping you. So for us, we help with peer group learning, capability building, providing tools to actually help members on their journey. We sort of, okay, here's some of the challenges. How do I start? Here's what's facing me. How can we can do that? And I think, again, with Genevieve, great example of, still training your staff and sustainability, training your staff and AI, understanding your supply chain every day, engaging with your members and so forth. That communication piece really helps build that resilience. So I think that's what we're really seeing, is that sort of, if you integrate it into your business model, you've got a better chance of survival. But it is a new norm. You have to keep you can't treat sort of these events as sort of, okay, this is the current crisis and then there's the next crisis and so forth. It's kind of, we're in a very dynamic market at the moment. So you really have to build it in, be prepared and build that into your organizational DNA. And people are a big part of that. You need to have the right people and the right talent who can understand the environment that we're working in and actually can, double down on some of the challenges that we're facing, whether it's technology, AI, workforce, understanding your emissions and so forth.
You bring that up, and that's a good point. I mean, I did want to ask you, sort of, when we think about the current challenges or the most important things that are on the minds of your member companies, is it supply chains? Is it hazards and risks to physical assets? Is it financing, access to talent? When we think about the resilience challenges. Right now, what's the top priority?
Our supply chain, I think, is the biggest one that we're seeing at the moment. Is I think the old model is very transactional. You deal with your suppliers, but now it has to be a partnership model. You have to really work with your supply chain and be a bit more collaborative in your approach, a bit more engaging in what you do. I think the leading companies realize that resilience. Your organization can't be resilient if your suppliers aren't resilient. So you need to work with your suppliers to do that. So we're seeing, organizations really investing in the supplier capability, sharing their best practice, improving data transparency, jointly looking at reducing operational costs together. I've just come back from a meeting at L'Oreal, and they're a really good example. They're
L'Oreal,
they're one of our members. They're very progressive, very well. Rohini, she's great. So rather than dropping suppliers that fall short, as an example, they built like a really proactive partnership model where they select suppliers based on environmental and social issues, but you don't just say, well, you made the cut or not. They actually provide them with the tools and the training to actually really help develop their knowledge and skills to be able to sort of survive in this world. So it's a deliberate shift. It's a very more proactive shift in terms of what they're doing. So it's a really good example of proactivity in terms of engagement, which is needed.
And Genevieve, when it comes to your company's relationships with suppliers and with customers, what impact is that need to build resilience having on those relationships? And does it mean there are more difficult conversations to have?
Yeah, so David talked about the supply chain and relationship with suppliers. I think that's so critical. Resilience does, of course, impact relationships, but I like to turn it and say that relationships actually affect resilience. And because it's this very important word, trust. And because in times of uncertainty, right, in a disruption, suppliers would prioritize customers they trust. Customers would also trust the suppliers, I mean, would work with suppliers that they trust. So, for our business, we are a paper and print media supplier. So we are in the middle of the supply chain. It's very important that we have support from our suppliers, the paper mills, and also, of course, the printers and the design agencies that we support. So what I've got a story about this, because what happened is that, which really reinforced why trust in relationships throughout the supply chain is so critical. Because back in 2015, so slightly more than 10 years ago, what happened was that our former shareholder wanted to restructure the European business. And so they were going to close it. And of course, that had ripple effect. Our suppliers got, of course, a little bit nervous. If Europe is closing, is Asia going to be next? So, but while our Asian businesses were fundamentally sound, of course, that got people a bit of the jitters, right? Yeah. But what happened was something I'll remember always, is that the suppliers continued to support us in spite of the circumstances. And that was not because, it's not because what occurred was really because of the trust that we built over the years. And
Genevieve, a great example of that was COVID in some respect, wasn't it?
Yes, also that. But, in our case...
That was a crisis and we dealt with it.
And in our case, because it was a financial issue as well. Yeah. But the thing is that the suppliers continued to support because of the trust and credibility built over the years. Yeah. And they were able to continue they wanted to continue to supply us, and we were able to support our customers as well. And that's why we're still here today. Not quite. So that really leads me to this conclusion that really trust is built before the crisis starts. Yep. And so it's when you really need it, and that's when it's really important.
Quite. Yeah. I guess one thing I'm interested in, Genevieve, is looking at industries broadly. There's been an understandable push for decades, I guess, really to prioritize optimizing for cost, optimizing for efficiency, just-in-time supply chains. All of those, I guess that's been challenged, as you guys just mentioned, by COVID, by other challenges. How do you balance the push and pull factors there? Are they actually in opposition? On the one hand, resilience, and on the other hand, low costs and efficiency. Yeah. How do you square that challenge in your business?
In our case, it's that for us, like I mentioned, that supply chain is really critical. So it's about continuing to build strong, trusted relationships, because that's when it comes in handy when the crisis starts. So whether or not it was supply chain disruptions, COVID, and there comes times when there are manufacturing shortages and all of that. So that it's at a time when you need that whole ecosystem support. Yeah. And that's where, when the push comes to shove, really, that's where the trusted relationships that you've built up with the suppliers and the customers that will help you during the disruption. So if you look at it, it's not a cost, it's truly that investment that you have to put in to build that entire ecosystem to go along with you. Yeah.
David, is that a tension playing out for some?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is compliance is, resilience is a compliance issue. It's not really. It's a growth strategy opportunity. I think the progressive companies are really seeing that, and they're using that to retool their business models. Yes, greater engagement, but also look at the way they're actually going about business. Like Schneider Electric, again, one of our major members, they redesigned their whole business model to be more sustainable, produce more sustainable tools and equipment and so forth like that. And not only by doing that, they reduce their operational costs, but they also enhance their business model. They're actually become more profitable and more engaged in the marketplace, and it's really redefined on how they operate. So I think looking at you need to be resilient, but resilience is an opportunity as well. Yeah, and it's an opportunity to engage, but it's also an opportunity to retool your business model.
Yeah, great. Just a reminder for the audience, if you are using the app for the summit today, you can submit questions for the panel through the app. So do go ahead if there are issues you'd like to hear us tackle. David, I want to come back to you. We've thought a lot, we've heard a lot in sessions today about the use of data. What role and what, I guess, developing role does data play in resilience? And when it comes to your member companies, have they got the right tools? Are they are they able to make the right measurements? How is sort of the emerging role of data helping them?
Yeah, I think the most resilient organizations we see are really using data to anticipate disruption rather than just simply respond to it. And I think that's very a very key on the most successful companies. I didn't want to say you can't manage what you can't measure, but it's very, very true. And you need to have good quality information as well. But I think the advent of AI, and we're all using it, we're all getting a lot of output out of it, it's making a huge difference. But you need to have obviously good quality data. But I still don't think it replaces good decision making from leadership as well. So I think it has to be integrated. You can't let AI become your leader. You have to sort of still use the tools to actually be able to advance things that way. We've created a lot of tools. You mentioned before our CERT tool. We've got a tool to help our members record their carbon emissions and to understand their carbon emissions. We just launched a tool with OCBC Pulse, which is a free tool for SMEs to be able to calculate their where they are in their ESG journey, and therefore be able to sort of access better finance as well. So data and tools can make a huge difference to organizations, and I think you've seen tools that you use as well.
It's been actually
quite
very
Genevieve.
helpful. I mean, for SMEs, it's for me, we're still like an SME because in terms of the number of staff and the resources, but we are still very far from that. We're still exploring how we can also incorporate AI into our operations. But I think what's important for us is that to make sure that at least the staff are first equipped with the basics, is laying the foundations. So I think we're barely scratching the surface right now, but we've gone through at least the training it's all available for a lot of the companies in Singapore through, for example, organizations like SNEF and all. So I've got the staff through digital literacy, how to use responsible use of AI, also using that to create online courses. But going beyond, there's so many sophisticated tools out there. I'm nowhere near that at that, but we are still open to exploring how we can then use it to better, to understand customer insights better, market intelligence. I mean, there's so much out there to learn, but what's important is getting the staff, that culture ready to, take on these new technology.
So, and do we see the sort of best practices flow down from larger companies to small to medium companies? I was thinking about the ways in which we see, even just here in Singapore, enterprises help each other from your perspective as a wide membership group.
In Singapore, we talk about Queen Bees, which is a big thing. And Queen Bees are the organizations who've obviously got the scale and the clout to be able to influence their supply chain. And so we deal with a lot of Queen Bees, and ICBC being one as an example, where their impact is large in the community. They've got a huge supply chain and so forth. So they're really using that. And then we work with them to sort of really help learn from each other, and we learn from different sectors as well, learning off each other as well, which is very important. That's really why I think a cross-sectoral group is quite good, because different industries and different sectors are operating at different paces, and sometimes you can learn from really good industries. So a great example is the built environment in Singapore. We're city in nature. So the built environment's a huge part of Singapore. It's a city-state. But that's quite advanced in terms of sustainability practices. Our landlord CDL is one of the bigger real estate providers here in Singapore, and what they're doing in terms of the building, you can see it as you walk around the skyline, the green, the adaptation of nature into buildings is a good example for others to learn from.
Quite. And so, Genevieve, I was going to ask you, when we think about the lessons a company like yours has drawn from its experience, you're in it's a specific industry, and you've got very specific sectors you interact with, forestation issues, as you mentioned, from your suppliers, and obviously your customer base is different to a services industry, other manufacturers, technology. That said, are there lessons that you've taken from your resilience journey that you think can scale?
I mean, just following on what David has said, right? I mean, in terms of scaling solutions, I think there's something out there that we can do, because I always believe that we need to strengthen the ecosystem. Yeah. We need to uplift the capabilities of the, of whether it's the suppliers and also the customers, right? In my case, in our case, we worked with GCNS also to create sustainability and carbon management workshops, so that my customers would have the skills and also access to tools to start their sustainability journey. Because if they do well, I fundamentally believe that we will do well. You know, if you think about it, you know, since we are both football fans and World Cup has just ended, resilience is really a team sport. You know, because when it comes to, in order for us to succeed, right, in crisis, you need suppliers. You need suppliers who will support you, committed customers, capable employees, and organizations that we work together. And so that's why it's something that I believe that if organizations out there who can support your ecosystem, I think that let's get this thing going, because that's so important. The queen bees and all of that.
And I do say, for those who are not from Singapore or have visited here, I think the Singapore and sustainable ecosystem is very collaborative. You know, the partnership between government, institutions, commercials is quite strong. You know, there's a lot of proactivity in terms of practical proactivity in terms of moving things forward.
Well, that's great. And I really wish that I'd come prepared and I knew the Spanish word for resilience, given the results in the World Cup. But please do join me in thanking my panel. Great discussion today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.